Over the past 25 years, there's been a really rich collaboration among multiple stakeholders in this scholarly community, librarians, publishers, preservationists, technologists, researchers, to establish a robust infrastructure for digital preservation of the scholarly record. This infrastructure is well deserving of the second Rosenblum Award for Scholarly Publishing Impact. But there's a lot more to do to preserve the broad array of digital resources that researchers rely upon to do their work to advance human knowledge.
There's no preservation without access, and that there is no access without preservation, that the act of preserving involves an act of use.
A few of the key things that happened when the journals went online is that the practice of scholarship was really transformed. The problem of digital preservation was not just to capture a static rendition of the knowledge, but whether or not this dynamic publication was going to be captured. The librarians went from being responsible for the long-term memory to leasing the material. People were beginning to think about digital preservation. There was a lot of anxiety in the library community about the big deal, whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. What came out of that were the two really more community-based options, everyone rallying around the digital vault solution and the distributed community solution.
The challenge was, how can we collectively, as publishers, libraries, scholars, make a secure transition to e-only journals and realize the benefits that transition might offer? For libraries, the benefit was the cost savings that could come from reduced need for storage of print journals, requiring significant space. For publishers, the need to bring a journal to a close for various reasons, changes in the field, whatever it might be, to help support that. For the scholars, the desire to have that full scholarly communication record in a digital format. The solution was a small set of defined trigger events where if a publisher had discontinued a journal, then open it up. That model, and then the model that financially drew payments from both publishers and libraries, was so much stronger because of the really robust, candid, and open discussions.
The ISSN International Center now manages the Keepers Registry and 400,000 digital continuing resources, mostly journals. Only 25% of these titles are preserved. The scholarly content is better preserved than what we call the cultural heritage at large.
Fewer than 10% of journals in total are preserved in the recommended 3 trusted archives. Nobody knows the equivalent figures for books or data sets or databases or open source software or anything.
We are underestimating the governance layer of digital preservation. It's not just a technical issue, it's also about ownership, ethics, and control. We underestimate the speed of digital decay. Formats become obsolete, links break, and platforms disappear. Finally, we underestimate the importance of contextual metadata, and without it, preserved data becomes unusable. What keeps me up at night is the very real possibility that, in the case of Africa, we are producing knowledge faster than we can preserve it, and that we may lose critical research, data, and cultural heritage before it is properly captured, connected, and governed. I worry about the invisible loss, the theses, data sets, indigenous knowledge, and institutional research that never receive persistent identifiers, never enter interoperable systems, and simply disappear over time. This isn't just a technical issue. It's a question of ownership, attribution, and legacy.
The general public's trust in digital content is plummeting. The preservation space is already using tools that verify authenticity of content. As we move through time, but we're not being really transparent about it. I would love to see us being more transparent about these activities, because there's really an opportunity for us to be increasing the amount of trust people have for authenticity of digital content that we're providing, because we're already doing these very core digital preservation activities.
Nothing is ever preserved. It's only ever being preserved. We don't buy an app. We make a commitment when we take on digital preservation. So we need to renew that commitment ongoing.
In the early days, the publishers were reluctant, but with hindsight, it becomes clear that the librarians could no longer be the archives for society. They did not have the content. They did not have control over the infrastructure. And now it's the publisher's responsibility. They're the only ones who have the means to preserve this content for the future. Is it the case that the publishers, who are the larger publishers and really driving the process of digital preservation, will they really take on this mantle of responsibility and care for the material that is not their own?
We see a very long tail of publishers, small, maybe local publishers, maybe some of the smaller academic societies related, who are producing important research, but also don't have a large infrastructure behind them of preservation. Without that, that material goes at risk in two ways. Firstly, there's no one looking after it, or it's not clear oftentimes whose responsibility to look after it. And secondly, those are oftentimes the smallest and perhaps most fragile, vulnerable organizations.
We need investments in 3 areas: regional-led digital infrastructure, because we create this infrastructure from our lens, from our problems. KID is already there, ROR is there, but the Doc ID was purely created from the problems within the continent. And it was actually co-created by universities and museums. That is where the interoperability comes in. You make it interoperable with global infrastructure. So you also connect what is coming out from the global south with the global north and vice versa. The other part is capacity building and policy development. Training researchers, librarians, policymakers, especially when it comes to data stewardship, metadata standards, and open science practices. The reality is that funding is reducing. We need to look at more innovative ways for funding open infrastructure, not just short-term project funding, working with governments, making them part of the process and part of the system. It is part of the parliamentary budget reading when it comes to funding allocation to science, technology, and innovation. So in the case of Africa, my continent must move from being a contributor to global systems to becoming a co-owner of its scholarly preservation ecosystem, ensuring that its research is not only visible, but securely preserved, governed, and reusable for future generations. We need to move from access to agency.
We all need to think about automation and efficiency and the very long term. Look at various aspects of AI on a small scale, how it might be able to help with file formatting or tool building for ingest of content. Part of the challenge is explaining what we do and why it's important, even though people don't think about preservation or see it every day. Preserving increasing numbers of born digital complex works, interactive maps and notations written by the author and the reader, and video and audio. It's really a never-ending publication.
Anything that looks cool is the hardest scholarship to preserve. As we're seeing new innovations and how publications are presented, and it might have images, it might have text, it might have an interactive component, it might be gathering comments. That's all different pieces of software that's all working together, that's kind of coming together in this interface. So replicating that in a preservation environment over time as those components become dated and obsolete becomes really challenging.
Some data that I've seen from the Library of Congress suggests that over half of the planet's storage and chip capacity will be used for AI functions. We need to be more selective about what digital records and which digital data sets we keep, surface, and how we make those available for AI use.
That experience of the community coming together in recognition of a challenge that impacted multiple parts of that community that, if addressed, could help the community move forward to a better place. The institutional or community memory of that experience is like laying down a layer of muscle so that as technology continues to change, as the world of scholarly communication takes forms that we might not even be able to imagine today, that muscle memory is something that I think can be drawn upon to meet whatever the future challenges might look like.
We need more investment in people. It needs more people to handle the scale we're going to have and make better tools and process the material and make better workflows. We really need to invest in staff and invest in expertise to deal with the challenges that we're dealing with right now.
I would always answer that with more skills. We need more capable people. The digital preservation challenge turns out to be a human one.
The future of the scholarly record is incredibly important because scholars in the future will build upon the work of scholars today.
It's not just about losing data, it's about losing Africa's ability to define, protect, and benefit from its own knowledge systems.
We can never determine whether it has been effectively preserved. We need preservation to ensure access.